Hello and welcome everybody to Around the Battleground. My name is LHS. I'm your host. This is our interview portion of the show. We've got a couple of these coming out. I'm not sure how this is going to be in the format of things, so this is part of the live show. Hello everybody. If it's not, this is just on YouTube, and hello everybody watching afterwards. Today on our show, we have a special guest, somebody we've had on the show a couple times now. One of my favorite people in this might seem. We've got Nate Ataraxia, the ADC for Dignitas. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. You're I don't know. You're one of the guys that has like I've been attached to. It's weird to say. Like I like you've been one of my favorite guys in the scene for a long time. When I first got into Smite, right, I was trying to pick a team, and God help me, for whatever reason, it was Hungry for More, and stood through the giant loss streak, and then you start turning things around. You get picked up by Obey, and the next thing I know, I'm at Worlds watching you guys, and that just cemented you. That group of guys was like, all right, these are my guys that I want to follow going forward. And you made it easy for a while because the three of you, Prime, and Twig stuck together for a while, and then Harry made it difficult. He had to go off and do his own thing, but now back together. Yeah. And I guess that's as good a place as any to start, really, right? This was the first year in a long time that it's not been you, Twig, and Prime, and then basically forever since it's been you and Prime.
Yeah, it's been really difficult because Prime and me separating, it wasn't like a choice. Like, so when Twig went to a different team this time, Obey broke apart because Prime wasn't playing anymore. Mid laners are so important for team. Grouping around a mid laner is really, really important. Without Prime, the rest of us, of course, as Alraf, we didn't think there was any standout candidate to fill that role. And then unfortunately we weren't let it roles, but but with both of them a lot because I think it was 3 years with Twig or 2, yeah, and then a lot longer with Prime. It's been weird and sad in a way to be without him, but I still get to see he would come over for Game of Thrones and stuff while in here. But unfortunately, I'd still miss the big Prime.
Yeah, I can only imagine like having teamed with someone for that long, and then not even just like making like the decisions, like trying other things, but like not being able to, like you physically cannot, like there is a barrier for him to continue that. Like that's what makes it even harder too, is like, well, like you wanted the partnership to continue, and things happen. But and I gotta imagine it's kind of weird too, because Dig is a team, right? I mean, the guys, you've been around those guys for a long time, and then not only you're acclimated to that new team, but then you get Hurrywin mid, and I have to imagine out of mid laners you had, which is, I guess, as I'm saying that, it's just Prime. Hurry's a very different entity than Prime has been.
He is, yeah. They're very different people. Definitely got his qualities, which I've never experienced in a team before, but I think we're quite similar when it comes down to it. We're both quite argumentative. We both think about the game a lot, and we both probably talk too much, if we're being honest. But no, it's been really good. So like moving to the Dig team in general has been a pretty smooth transition for me. I love like all of them. Are so easy to get along with, and the social aspect is the biggest thing. That's what I enjoy the most about it. Like playing Smite's awesome, and we're doing pretty well, which is good. But like socially, the stuff we do outside of the game is just fun. Everyone gets along, which is it's what you want.
Yeah, obviously we've seen some team environments already start to crumble because spending too much time with one another, and we don't have the full story, but obviously when you just genuinely enjoy the company of people. I mean, you look at right off the bat, I look at you guys, Dig, as a team that's very much the case, and then you look at like Renegades, right? Those were guys that were just playing casuals with each other anyway. Like those,
they were friends before they made a team. They would play games and stuff and get along. So it's no wonder they're doing so well.
Yeah, I can only imagine what happens at the Renegade house after hours. Like that is That is a wild group of dudes.
Anywhere where Raph and Fumble are is guaranteed to be a party.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my god, I remember was it Worlds? So it wasn't at this last Worlds, but years before. So season 4, Funball was just there hanging out, and I got with him, Danny, Slaney, and we were all just hanging out. And all of a sudden, like during like some like I forget like what set it was, Funball was just like, "Hey, you want to go get drunk and get in the hot tub?" I was like, "There's games like this is during the day." I'm like, Funball, like, "No, I'm here for the games." He's like, all right, I'll catch you later. And then him and Raph and all of them disappeared for like 5 hours and showed up at the hotel bar after like the day it had been over, just gone. That was the day that I think Raffer live streamed. Like did the IRL stream on.
I think of that every time. I think like the day he gets in or the day after, so he'll get his a live stream out, go down to the hotel bar.
It was a fun time. Oh god.
Yeah.
So moving is a big thing. That's the talking point for this year, coming from Wales, the Welshman, coming over. And how's the acclamation to the States been?
It's been pretty good for me. It's been like living here. I love it. I generally am a pretty easy person, like home is where I am.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing is being away from my girlfriend because she's still at home. And she's been to visit, and I'll be going home soon to see her as well. But we've been together for as long as me and Prime were together, or I guess a bit longer now. They both started around the same time. Together almost exclusively the entire time, is also going from when we wake up to when we go to bed, like nonstop all day, to not seeing her at all for months at a time has been it's been pretty shit, to be honest. But I guess it's just one of the sacrifices, and we're doing well. We Skype all the time, so it's still going strong. Nothing to worry about. But still,
I can relate better than most. My wife and I, we met online, and she was up in New York and I was down in Virginia, and that's about 700 miles between. So like a good chunk, like that is a full day's drive, right? And so for the first 4 years or so, it was all long distance, a relationship and everything, so didn't get to see each other. And then I'd get up at 4 a.m., go to work in the military. I'd do a shift of like guard duty. I would do my week's worth of work, and then I had the worst days off. I had like Tuesday, Wednesdays off. It was the worst. I'd get off at like 1 p.m. Tuesday, get in my car. I wouldn't change out of my work uniform. I'd literally go into the parking lot after work and drive the 700 miles to get there. I'd get in like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, go to bed, get up, spend that next day, and then get up at like 5 a.m. the next day and leave to come back down for work. Like it was.
That sounds really difficult, but I bet it was worth it.
It was. Obviously married now, and then I did the internship down at in Atlanta after we had started living together, and that was only about 3 months, but it's difficult, as you said, like when you're spending all day every day with that person, and then all of a sudden they're
just not there.
They're not there, and it's just a weird feeling. Like it's like an incomplete feeling. It's like you get that feeling where like I'm forgetting something, but like in a very different way.
I 100% yeah. It's difficult.
But it sounds like you've got a good group of guys around you, helping you get through and everything. I'm sure Biggie, is making sure everyone's situated nicely over there. Like as a coach, I can imagine his job is easier with you guys in a lot of ways because you guys seem fairly even keeled. So, a coach's job primarily, I have found, is, being the therapist and making sure everyone's playing nice with each other. And I can imagine you guys don't really have too much of the issue with that.
I think every team's got their fair share of problems and drama, We
but
do
nobody
have
has
on the team, and they're a bit wild. But
nobody's quit in the middle of a scrim to go buy a plane ticket home yet, right? Like that hasn't happened.
Not yet. There's still time.
that was still my favorite story from like when Biggie said he was like coaching Dig and they were like boot camping with Zeros and like Zeros stopped scrimming to buy his plane ticket home. I was like, Jesus. I mean,
Yeah, the old Dick had some drama at a tough scrim environment from time to time.
yeah, a
But
little
they're
bit.
still all really good friends. Like whenever, like every weekend or something, we go out, we meet up. Like all of them are like thick as thieves still. Despite all that stuff, despite them going different ways and the team splitting up, they're all really close together, which is awesome to see. Because a lot of teams, like when they split, they kind of lose the friendship. But it's really awesome that the 2 years that these guys spent together, it still means everything to them.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's another good question too. Is like, so with everybody kind of moving down in like the same area, right? Do you guys? I know there's like the competition aspect, like everybody's enemies, right? But like, how much do you guys like actually do stuff with the other players and other teams down there?
It's quite frequently, honestly. Like there is everyone gets along really well, as more so now that everyone's moved. And I'd say every weekend usually there's someone going out, and people do different things. Like some of the rival boys don't go out, some of the rival boys do, so they kind of split up. And I think most of the Smite players have started the little gym grind as it is, so people go together on that one. I know Chapo has been involved too, getting people motivated and stuff. So that's really good. But yeah, usually like us, PK, some of the rival boys, as Renegades, Love Fumble, and Raf. People go out quite a lot, go down to Atlanta and stuff. It's difficult for some teams because we're actually really far away from everyone else. We're like from where the edge of the zone, and we're quite far, we're like an hour away from that. So the travel is a bit of a pain, but when we do go, it's good fun. And there is usually something quite frequently. Like we had Game of Thrones here, where like Twig, Panda, and Kenny would come over, and people go out to the PK house for barbecues and stuff like that. So it's good. It's fun.
Good. That's the kind of stuff I like to hear. Obviously, like everybody's got the, on the fan side of things, like, oh, you've got your favorite team, you got your team you hate and everything. But like the behind the scenes, it's much more. Everybody gets along. There's rivalries, but the fact that you're all down there and actually helping each other get through it, because a lot of like, especially you guys from the EU, and like I don't want to discount like the guys in NA who had to move and uproot their lives too, but certainly like moving an ocean away, countries away, that's a very different thing. And having like a group of guys like to bring a little bit of home, definitely helps.
Yeah, it's a bigger culture shock, I think, for the non-US people to come over because everything's so different here. And it's not all bad. There's a lot that's really good here, so it's been good. And I think that having so much going on for me anyway, it's helped because it's harder to miss people back home if your mind's occupied and you're not just sitting in your room or anything like that. If you go to the gym, you're going out, you're doing whatever, it keeps you busy, and that makes it easier.
Right. What has been, I mean, obviously apart from like the relationship stuff, what's been like the hardest thing to get like accustomed or adjusted to since the move?
I don't think there has been anything. I think it is just the relationship. Everything else has been pretty seamless because I've been there a few times for lands and whatnot, so it wasn't too difficult. But lifestyle wise, it's, as far as say it's better. We live pretty close to Walmart, so pretty easy to do.
Yeah, because I mean, you live like northern, out nowhere Wales, right?
Pretty much. Yeah. So it's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. There's world, there's civilization around you.
There's people and. I do miss the nature side of it, actually. That's pretty true because everything's so built here, and when it's not built, it's just flat.
Yeah, I mean,
whereas back home, I'd open my front door and there's a beautiful mountain, a lake, and stuff like that. So it's
there's I think near. I mean, you're an hour away, depending on which direction and everything you are. There should be like Stone Mountain shouldn't be that far from you guys, and that's like a pretty good destination spot to go.
Yeah, we're up in Cumming, and we stayed in an Airbnb near Stone Mountain.
Yeah.
When we first moved here, while the house was getting ready. But that was a nice area. We never got to do. There was like is it a Confederate show or something up there that they do every year? Which is it a Confederate show? Is that the right word for it?
Like a Civil War reenactment type thing.
Something, I'm not sure.
Good lord.
Hindu said it was quite the spectacle.
Yeah, that's America for you right there. Yeehaw.
Yeah.
Good lord. But yeah, that great area. When I lived down there, I went out to Stone Mountain a couple times. That was really fun. Obviously you've been down here for the LAN, so I mean, I'm sure. Did you ever, when you were coming down here for LAN, did you ever get like time to be in the area? Because I mean, the one time that I went down with Obey and was like kind of interacting with the team and everything, it was you guys were behind stage the entire time. You guys were up in the hotel rooms, like doing VOD review and everything like that. It was very, very much, you know, very focused. You know, you're not getting out. You know, we didn't see the Obey boys at the hotel bar at the night, right? So
Yeah.
Is this like the first time that you've been able to actually get out and go explore like the Atlanta area that you've been in so many times?
The first time was actually World's just gone because we got first rounded, so it was went to my girlfriend actually came to that one, and we went to like go see the aquarium and stuff, which is really cool.
Yeah.
They got those little what they call the cleaning shrimp. You put your hand in, and then they tickle it to clean it. But no, that's the first time I've really done anything. So yeah, there's a lot of new experiences and stuff.
Yeah, so the aquarium, that was like every time you go to Atlanta, and you meet anybody from Skillshot or Hi-Rez or whatever, they're like, all right, what are you gonna do right here? You gotta go to the aquarium. You gotta do the aquarium. It's like an aquarium, like you don't think of like it's gonna be this thing, but I mean like they've got that one big tank where they've got the whale sharks swimming around. Like that's worth the price of admission. Just going to see that is kind of amazing. Yeah,
it's hard, like, because you read about it on the internet, or you see in a book, and you're like, yeah, it's a big whale, but it is until it's like on the other side of the thick glass, and it's absolutely, it encompasses your entire view. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's definitely, if you're going to Worlds, if you're going to DreamHack this year, go to the aquarium. You won't be disappointed. The Coke Museum, you can take it or leave it.
We didn't do that one.
Yeah,
that one.
We went to the Coke Museum because we wanted to get like the custom printed Coke things.
Oh yeah.
They don't do that inside. There's like a kiosk outside of the museum. And so we found that out. We paid. We did the whole thing, and it was like, all right, we want to get our custom bottles. We're like, oh yeah, we don't do that here. I was like, what? Like, this is a ripoff. Like, that's like the whole reason we came.
Literally why you came.
Yeah, it was rough. All right, so enough about the outside the game type of stuff. Let's get it focused on the games and everything like that. You guys came in, obviously, one of the stronger teams. But of course, everybody kind of looked at Pittsburgh Knights as like that is the roster. It's the all-star roster, everything like that. But you guys, greater than the sum of your parts, I think is a really good description of you guys. I mean, obviously, every one of you guys are top tier in your roles. Cubo's been one of the best, if not the best, junglers in the world for a while. Trix has been right there at the top with support. Harry's in the conversation for the solo laners and everything like that. But unanimous best players, Cuvo. But you guys came out and have really just lit the scene on fire. And I think a lot of people have been surprised by how quickly you guys kind of came together. Especially, I think a lot of people looked at Hurry as like a weird decision, a weak decision. It's like, oh, you guys. You got zeros left and you replace them with Hurry. But honestly, it looks like that decision has like honestly allowed you guys to do so much more and to be as dominant a team as you've been.
Yeah, I think a lot of the credit goes to Biggie, because he, after the 2 years with the Odd Rod, he'd identified what the issues were and what they wanted moving forward. And the big thing that they said they lacked was leadership. And that's where I came in. That's what they specifically, when we were in talks to make the team in the first place, they said this is what we want. Because I was actually kind of looking forward to not being the captain for a team for the first time, but they were like, oh, so you wanted to be the captain. But so I was brought in for the shot calling kind of stuff. And Tyler was to be more of a neutral party, because in the past Zeros is quite controlling with the team. And I think that kind of, there was Trix is a guy with a ton of ideas, and Zeros is a guy who knows how he wants to play the game. Like, he has it in his head. This is how to play the game. This is correct, and this is how we're going to do it. And I think that they clashed a lot with that. And having Tyler instead of Zeros has allowed a better thought process between Trix. They play around mid and stuff like that. And I think that transition has been really, really good for Trix individually as a player, because you've seen him like be incredible like this season. I mean, he's always been good, right? But I mean, Fred has always been incredible and always been regarded as number one, him and Adapt and Trade. But Trix has kind of dropped out of the conversation until this year. And for me, like, he's been the most stable and consistent performer on the team. He's been absolutely incredible. And I think a lot of that comes down to this this team that Biggie had envisioned with these defined roles and how we all play it in and out of the game. And that has given Trix more freedom to be Trix and come up with these ideas and come up with these comps and how he wants to play the game. And I think that's been really good.
So the last couple of years has been kind of tumultuous for your teams. Obviously you've had the core of you, Prime, and Twig, but kind of a revolving cast out of solo and support. Obviously coming into this year, another roster change for you. Has it been an easier time to adjust with this new team versus times in the past, or because then this is top to bottom a new roster for you? Has that made it more difficult?
I was worried coming in that I wouldn't have a lot of. Well, I wasn't worried coming in, actually. What I realized coming in is that I have a ton of respect. Like, the guys really looked up to me, or not looked up to me, but they respected me as a player and as a potential leader way more than I thought that they would. And it's a respect that I think I didn't lose on Obey, but with the constant roster changes, it wasn't there in the same way that it was in season 3 and in the start of season 4. But the adjustment period for it has been a lot easier, mostly because me and Tyler are joining onto a core. So Fred, Harry, and Trix, and Biggie, in game, Fred, Harry, and Trix, they're the core. They're the front line. And I think Smite has always been dominated by front lines. It's the most important cohesive unit, and those three do it better than anyone. I think they were the best front line combo, and I think they still are the best frontline combo. So joining that is much easier than on Obey. We had the constant issue of having our frontliners rotate, and that building that synergy and building that consistency in how you play was so difficult because the people we changed were like so different in playstyles. Because when we went from season 3 to season 4, that one was quite easy because Harry to Maniac were, they're kind of the same players. They hold W and left click until someone dies or they die. And Millsy was very different to Frezzy, but that was a really positive change for us. He's a really good teammate and a really good problem solver. But then when we lost Maniac, we replaced him with Zelia, which changed the frontline dynamic to what we're used to because Zelia's a lot more reserved and he's not a whole W kind of player. And he's good in his own right, but his playstyle was different. And then when Millsy left, it's this Rafa's a lot more uncalculated. He'll take bigger risks to get bigger rewards, and he's not the kind of, he's a bit more out there with how he plays, and he baits himself a lot more, which was more akin to Frezzy, but we'd gotten so used to playing with a Millsy for the year that it just changed everything up. And having the constant, as you said, revolving door of solos and supports, which messes your frontline synergy, it was hardest on Twig, I think, because he's the one who has to bring it together, like he was the constant, and having to play with so many different play styles in such a short amount of time relatively was really difficult. And it's been much easier to adjust to this one because I'm just slotting in, like I said this at the start of the year when we started winning, any ADC could go on this team and they look like a star because these guys make it so easy for you. Any ADC or mid could join this team and be amazing.
Yeah, I understand the statement behind that, but I think you got to give yourself and Hurry both a lot of credit for what you guys bring to the team as well. I mean, Hurry is a guy who I think was overlooked a lot of the time in NA because he just did his job, and that doesn't he wasn't he wasn't basking in mid play, making like the craziest mechanical plays you've ever seen. He's not throwing an Uller act, blinking behind the guy and then killing him from like he's not doing that. He's just doing what he needs to do, being in the right place at the right time. And that doesn't get you a lot of attention. And then also being on like an unfortunate roster situation with CLG, that team just never meshed. They never got on the same page. And so him being adding it, what I've always said, and you being from the east side of things, maybe can agree with me more than others, or completely call me an idiot. But what I've always said about Hurry is he's a rich man's version of Nulissa. They come in, they do their job. They're not the flashiest players, but they're 9 times out of 10 they're not losing you the game. and they both have amazing Giannis's. You know, like the similarities are just
Yeah, I think
yeah.
yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah, so I really like the Hurry pickup, especially coming off the Zeros, because Zeros being a great mechanical player, and I don't want to bash him or anything like that, but an admittedly weaker like depth of god pool for that mid role, and as I feel like Hurry is just like, you want to play what? All right, I can make that work, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one thing. Zeros has got, like I said, he's got his one way to play the game, which is like he's easily the best Morrigan in the world. He's now the best Jormungandr in the world, and that's something that you can't take away from him. But he specializes so deeply in these characters that he struggles to like pick up stuff like Zeus. You know, like we've seen his Zeus performances, the best. And whereas, as you said with Tyler, like we ask him to play something, he's like, yeah, I'll do it, and then we build a comp around it, and it works. He's very flexible like that, which is super important for the team.
Yeah, and then back to like our focus, you know, out of that ADC role, I think having shot calling early out of the ADC role is very important. You know, you got to have your ADC there for objectives, everything like that, knowing when you can do that, especially now where you're being left alone so much. You know, you kind of can take stock of what's going on around a lot more, and then just being able to adjust and adapt to situations. You know, when you get 2 games where Zapman just gets to press W at you and ruin your life, and then you can come back from that. Like the mental resiliency as well, I think, is something that this Dig team struggled with in the past, and now I think you guys have really shown that a lot of growth, and like all the credit to Biggie, I think, for and Dignitas as an org for placing so much trust in Biggie to like put the pieces together where he needed to. And as much as like the humble man you are, you want to say you could plug in any ADC in this team. I really do think that out of everybody available, right, I think that you were probably the best selection here, just based on player skill, all the intangibles you bring. So, I will be the hubris here. I will be the pride for you if you're going to take the humble route.
Oh, thank you very much. I do think that leadership-wise, I think that's something that I bring, and I think that's something unique to me, and I don't think a lot of ADCs do that. And the shot calling in game and stuff, I think that's really important, and that's where that's where I've been focusing my improvement on and trying to be better. I've stopped like going for the funny thing is, at the start of the year, I said, like, I don't really care about what people think of me anymore, because I always have, and I've tried to bring that down as years have gone by. And this is the one where I said, I don't care about that. This is, I'm moving to go for worlds. Let's get the ego out of here, and I'm gonna, they want me to be a leader, so I'll do that as much as I can, and I'm gonna focus on that, and that's gonna be my core. And then since deciding to do that, everyone now finally decides to say I'm a good player, which is, that's funny how that works. But
yeah, I think a lot of what you kind of suffered from too was the revolving door for the Obey squad. You guys had the pop. I mean, there wasn't anybody in the world saying that, Ataraxia is not a good ADC after season 3, right? Like everybody was really high on the roster. And then I think as roster changes happen, as like I don't think people realize how hard it is to come back from some roster changes, especially support and solo. It doesn't sound like a lot when you're exchanging one, but like Raffer to Emilzy, those are very different players.
Yeah.
Emilzy like does the math calculation, like hour and a half long podcast, YouTube videos. Raffer drinks a beer and like laughs at people, right? Like there's a very, very different uses of time there, and neither is wrong. I think other teams definitely need that Raffer who just like, I'm gonna go in, and you're like, what? And then he's gone already, and it works or it doesn't, but he's that catalyst guy, right? And I think some teams need that. I think that's why he fits so well on Renegades. I looked at that roster, Funball, Cherio, Raffer, like those guys. I'm like, they're gonna either be amazing or a dumpster fire. There is no in between for those guys.
I felt the exact same way, and I'm really glad that they are doing really well. I think Raffer joining Obey last year, I know that he wanted to team with Funball. So him finally getting to do that is really awesome, and I'm so glad that they're succeeding, because they are really good friends, and I think both of them have had rough roster situations since the pinnacle teams like Fumble and Orbit and Referent Energy. They've both had like a rough downturn, I think, in public opinion. So for them to rise straight back to the top is really cool, and they both deserve it.
Absolutely. I think again another couple of guys who have been colored the wrong way just because of things breaking the wrong way. You know, sometimes it doesn't work, and it's not because you're bad players or anything. It's just whether it's meta, whether it's some personal things. Like some teams just kind of have problems in that regards. And we have an interview with Funball coming up. Funny story. We recorded it and then finished and realized there was no audio. So his interview was supposed to come out before Nate's. It's not anymore. So focusing on Renegades, first team to take a set off of you guys. Kind of what was the feel kind of going into that game, having seen their performances against Trifecta and SK, and how well they were able to match up, with very minimal play time going into your guys' game. And then what was it like, after the fact, coming through the other side? Was it a good loss? Because, and I think the old adage for Smite, for high-end people is, if you're winning, you're not learning, right? So if you finally get your losses, you get a lot of, there's a lot of knowledge to come out of it.
I think it was, I think we'll think, for me, when we moved here, there was a lot more, let's say, people put more time in, myself included. And I think that as we've won more and more, I wouldn't say that we've gotten lazy, but I would say we've gotten a bit complacent and maybe thought we were a general team environment. And I don't think that like that honeymoon period of riding the momentum went a while ago. Now it's just determination and work that needs to be put in. And I think it just adds to that, so the loss has been really good for me personally anyway, because I think this is like the kick in the ass that we say, look, we did win 7 games, right? And we did beat all the top teams, but we were pretty close. There were a lot of best of 5s that went that way. They could have gone either way. And we, even if our record says we're not number 1 until we win Worlds, so it's just like a nice little reminder that we're not untouchable. And that was good. I think it was a bit of a shock that we lost still. But I do think it was a really good and a really important loss. And the thing is that Renegades beat us at what we thought we were best at, which is late game. And I think drafting wise and how we've been in the meta, we've actually been playing from behind in almost all of our sets. I think we've been slow to adapt to what brought out, and we've been behind on some picks like Drum Gun against Splice. We had issues too. And starts especially we've all had issues with, but we've always fallen back on, if we get to team fights at the end, we'll win, because we're that good, and that's where we specialize in. And that had always held true until Renegades. I do think that our starts weren't good as theirs, and we were behind on the pick and bans because we hadn't gotten to see them play yet, like a proper one. But that's just how it goes, So and they just beat us straight up at team fights. They were better than us on the day, and that's what matters. So that's a hard lesson to learn and a tough pill to swallow. So
one of the things watching the game, and I was really curious to get your opinion of it, is watching Renegades. What it feels like they're really good at is minimizing how much you're able to capitalize on their mistakes. So you look at like Splice's run to Worlds last year. Their whole strategy was, if things starts going south, we clown Fiesta, we stretch it out, and we make sure we can try to find our way to fight back in. We minimize what you're able to get off of us. And I feel like that skill is what largely led to Splice being able to win Worlds. Is they cause chaos, and they kind of can thrive in that environment better than a lot of people. And then Renegades they've also kind of been doing that, where Cherry will have a shaky start, but then it kind of runs around a little bit, causes, if stuff starts going south in a team fight, they kind of spread out just enough to, take a target prioritization off. Would you say that that's like an accurate observation for what Renegades has been good at?
I'd say it feels slightly different in the way that I do agree that they're very, very good at minimizing losses, but I'd say it's a different way. It's not chaotic. It's very organized. I think we've seen SK, especially in scrims. You guys don't get to see this, but in scrims and in the SPL to an extent, at least earlier on in the season, they were really, really good at invading buffs. Like they would always be there on time and set up in a position that you couldn't contest it. Teams would walk in, teams would die, SK would win the game or win the set. Something they were really, really good at. And watching Renegades before we played them, it was weird against SK because SK didn't invade them. And after us playing them, it felt like it was because they are the same thing that SK were, but on the defense, they were always prepared to defend the buff in a way that made you think maybe we shouldn't be going for this. So I need to like really study it and watch it back. But it was a weird feeling to play into because it was so difficult to get anything going. It was difficult for us to group up and force stuff. And also one really interesting thing, which I think we saw against all three sets. So us versus SK versus them, us versus them, and versus them most recently, even though PK won the set, is the way that Renegades team fight is almost always the other team has gone on them, and then they go a little bit too deep, and then Renegades mass chase them down and win the fight from a seemingly unwinnable position. And I think a lot of that credit goes down to Raf on these defensive guardians with like his relic usage has always been the best in Smite. I stand by that for years now, and you can really see it in these kind of team fights that when they play in, like it'll look a bit shaky, and then all of a sudden they flick it all, and they're chasing them from their own tier 2 down to their tier 1 and getting kills along the way, and that's how they've been winning, which is really cool to watch. Like it's, if you actually go back and watch it, they do it like every game.
It's really hard to pinpoint any one area of like how are they able to get all these things off. Whether it's fun ball, he's been playing a lot of the I think his Cronus has been really good. Having that 3 to like disrupt the team fight, and then like a turnaround 3 as they're chasing you, that turns the fight a little bit and lets you kind of re-engage. Re-engage back on. A dive heavy meta and comps, right? And then for a team to be able to counter engage off of your dives and everything like that, like I wonder as we wander through the meta if that play style, I think that play style is going to have like an eternal place in the meta. In the meta, like there's across the board. You look at Weekend right now in aggressive dive heavy jungler meta was really good. Every year he gets that. Then we get into when Robin finally gets a buff and gets itemization around him, and we are in tank jungles, Weekend falls off. That's not what he's good at, but I feel like as a team, Renegades is kind of future proof as much as you can be in this kind of situation with how they fight. And so definitely will love to see how they kind of go in throughout. Obviously they lose 3-0 to PK to some questionable stuff. 50-50 calls kind of could go either way in game 2 and game 3. But when my favorite thing about that set is just like the one thing that's been PK's biggest weakness so far ends up being their biggest strength. With it, like I feel like adapting this year has been pretty impatient for his engages, and then on the Arachne, F dot interviews him after the game. Is like, what happened? He's like, well, I just fucking blinked on him. Like that was it. Yeah. Like I just fucking blinked on him. You should tell your team, no, I just did it. And the one thing that's cost them games before is now what leads them to beat Renegades. And we're sitting here praising Renegades' ability to defend that engage. It's fun to get back into that. Back when we had Obey, who could be NRG, who could beat Dig, but in Rival, we had like the whole triumvirate type thing. Now we have, we've got Dig, we've got Rival, we've got PK, we've got Renegade. Like the top end for Smite really just feels like this is to me the best competitive scene we've had maybe ever, but it's certainly in a long time. I think there's just so much talent, and even as much as you guys have been winning, like you said, you guys have been to game 5s, and that's more than what we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing some stomps here and there, and even LG gave you guys a 1 game difficulty, right? So it's definitely fun to watch. Does that translate for you to like the fun of the scene when it's more
Oh,
competitive.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it's a bit of a two-sided coin because I'm a pretty anxious person in general, and I try to hide that and do better with it. But I always get anxious between any game. Doesn't matter if we're playing Trifecta or whether we're playing Renegades. That's always there. But I find it more difficult because there are so many more games where we could just lose because there's so many good teams. Like even like E United, we've not seen them play in weeks, and they could just come back with the 2-3 weeks they've had off and be monsters. And that's the scariest thing about this season, and the most exciting thing for the competition is that in these team house environments, with there's so much more smite discussion in between teams that maybe necessarily wouldn't have done it before. That all these new metas and picks and stuff are getting tried out in a much like I guess the best way in previous seasons, a cycle of metas, something would be done and then, like this isn't so good anymore because this new pick comes out or a balance change happens. And the way the wheel turns, the faster that's so much in how metas are changing and how quickly picks are rotating out and how because people are thinking about it so much more, which is really exciting because if you sleep on it for 1 week, you're far behind because some other team has figured something out, they scrimmed another team, and then it's just this constant wheel and it's turning so much faster. That's really difficult and exciting and anxious, anxiety inducing. So it's
Yeah.
just a really good mix, But I love that feeling of insecurity, I guess,
Yeah.
Like there is no guarantee that whoever's number one, like right now, PK number one, they beat Renegades who beat us, right? That's a pretty easy way to say it. But 2 weeks ago, we're the best team, and then next week, rival could be the best team, and this is going to be changing so often. You just might miss it because we only play each other once every twice. We play each other twice in a year, right? Like we're not going to end until phase 2, or I guess at the last. So the constant updating of who's the best and who's more advanced, always changing.
Hmm.
Like I guarantee that even though we've been 7-0, we've the entire time. It's just been the way that the pieces fall, which is super. That's crazy. That's going to be, and it's only going to get more competitive too.
Yeah. Would you? What one of my favorite things about this season so far too has been the breaking of that like traditional smite mold, right? I think as much as I love Bara and SSG, right, they have been they are the last bastions of traditional smite in a lot of ways. I think a lot of people have seen like, oh, we can't play the way we've always played before because it just doesn't work against more thought out strategies. And I hate to say more thought out strategies, but like the weird stuff. Your mid, right? If we're playing traditional smite the way that we've always played it, we're not going to beat the your mids of the world. And I personally really like that. We saw Funball break out the Poseidon ADC, whether it was a troll pick or not. He was like what 7-0 on it. Like it was disgusting. We see other things crop up. We've seen the Neja, the Circuit in spurts before, but now that that's a mainstay. That is a support character. Like even like bronze level ranked players know that Neja is a support character now. Like that's just the world we live in, and I personally like that. To me, it feels like we're kind of transitioning into an era of Smite where to me it adds that legitimacy of like of our game and everything, like when the way that we're thinking about it is we're pushing things where they've never been pushed before.
Yeah.
And simultaneously like everything is viable and nothing is viable, and that's I love existing in that little area because you can try just weird stuff, right? Lonos, Fenrir and everything like that is like really kind of taught us like we can really play anything. And then as a player, I can only imagine like that is, you said anxiety, you have like the anxiety over everything. Like that's got to be even more anxiety inducing because like you can all of a sudden have somebody pick this, off the wall. Like all of a sudden you've got Athena mid and you're like, that should be bad. But is it like, is there any little bit of that goes on when like, I can only imagine what you guys see in scrims.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more confidence in teams with these environments to kind of just pick stuff and trust it'll work out on the day. People have got an idea, they run with it a lot more, especially because it's best of fives. Like you can afford to lose a couple games and still come out clean. So there's been stuff like in our splice set that we played against them, Tebow solo in the first match, and that was because they played Hades. We've never played Hades. I played against the Hades in like 2 years, I think, in the scrims, and suddenly Davis is playing Hades, and Harry's like, "Get me Hebo." It used to be a good matchup, so maybe it still is, and we tried it. But it's the confidence to try that stuff, and that's one thing I'm really proud of in this team, is that everyone's so happy to try those kind of things. And like in game 5 of that set, we did the exact same thing. I had played Apollo, ever in scrims or in SPL games, and we needed to get Carly online. So I was like, "Get me Apollo, I can split push, we can not die so much, it'll be good." And then we ended up winning. And I think that kind of stuff is super important, and it's becoming more and more common as teams gain confidence. And I think that's expect out of a lot of the less regimented teams, I guess. Like PK, I think they're a pretty standard team in how they practice, and they're going to play what they practice. But teams like Rival, teams like us, is what we're trying to. Teams like Renegades, they're going to pick stuff that they feel just fits them. And I think that definitely factors into what you were saying about how these unpredictable picks come out, because they're going to try and in scrims, they're going to whip them out. Never really know how they're going to go until you try that. So.
Would you say, I don't know, so there's kind of the flip side, right, where you try something for the, I don't know that anybody tries something for the first time in the SPL. I mean, obviously you say Harry's like, "Oh, well, pick me Hebo," so sometimes it happens, but are we seeing behind the scenes, are we seeing more experimentation than we've ever seen before, or is that kind of stuff being more played close to the vest, where there's like, okay, we played this in ranked kind of, and we played it away from scrims where nobody has seen, and now we're unleashing it? Or is like there are people just experimenting with everything in scrims?
I think it depends on how good you think the strategy is and how. So the your mid thing, we had no idea that was coming, so I don't know whether they practiced it or not. Like, funnily enough, Tyler the week before said, "Hey guys, we tried it out, it didn't really work for us, so we kind of discounted it," and then they come out and it smacked us. So we know, and because all the teams kind of cycle scrims with each other as we face each other in the SPL, other stuff might come through. So how potent the pick you really like, how big you trusted it. So with us, for Afro would be the most recent thing that we came out with. We played that twice before we put it in the SPL, and we were so convinced off the first one, and we just picked against who we played it against to make sure that that team that we played against wouldn't want to try it themselves because they're not around that play style, and that they wouldn't be scrimming teams who could see it afterwards, and that's kind of important. But I think generally it's important to have the confidence that you don't need to practice it like 10 times in scrims to whip it out in the SPL. Once can be enough.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think, man, we've covered a lot of ground on this. I think I'm finally coming up dry with any real questions. Okay. Just as I say that, I give it enough time, I can come up with so many. But I think I'm gonna start cutting the losses, and we'll start winding down on this. I think one of the last questions I'll leave with is there any team for you that has just that extra little special oomph for when you play them? Is there anybody that like has the little extra motivation, or it's rivalry? I mean, is it rival because Twig's on there and you want to beat Twig? Is it Pittsburgh Knights, because I think for you historically NRG's kind of been the rival, so I mean they've got adapting and on that roster still, and then I don't know, it's kind of a weird situation for you, maybe.
I've never really personally been one for like the personal stuff. Even with NRG, like I didn't really mind when to specific people. I care about the overall win at the end. So for me, that's not been. But in the past, it has been really important, especially the Energy Obey matchup, because having it on both sides of Ref and both of them on the team, and they both care so much each other. Like this, when we had Emilzy, we won the better of the Energy matches, and then when we had Rafa, we won the better of the Energy matches. So it was kind of people definitely try harder when it comes to their old teammates. But I don't know, like Zal's on LG, so it's not really Uh, not to
Yeah,
be beyond, but it's not,
you don't need to say
And
it.
for
Yeah.
I don't know, for Twig, kind of like
It,
Twig deserves to win Worlds more than anyone in Smite at this point, I think, considering how long he's been at the top and how much he's sacrificed and all that stuff. So I've got nothing, Twig beats me in the finals, like I've got nothing but love for him. So,
yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's just the way I look at it, but I've never really been, so long as I win at the end, I don't care who I lose to or any of that stuff on the way.
Yeah. So I mean, you got. I mean, so you've got every round covered. I think you've had every outcome covered now. Win first round, lose first round, win second round, lose second round. All that's left is winning the finals, right? Like you've covered all the other bases.
Yeah, unfortunately, we got the lose first round and the last year, which is I think that's the first time that's happened, which is a horrible feeling.
But you lost to the world champions. Did that soften the blow at all? Like obviously in the moment, it's a huge blow. I've seen what happens with the team and everything, after the game, and it's brutal. Like it's like there's a lot of emotion, but as the couple of days kind of go on and Splice is just dominating and they win worlds. Is that all right? Well, we lost to the champions. Like are you less mad at that, or is it still just like I can't believe it?
I think with the most recent one, I'm mad at the format. I think I got quite pissed at the format actually because of the way they decided to seed the top seeds into Worlds and they skipped the lands and stuff. The last time we saw Splice play was some crap SPL match, like a best of 3, 2.5 months. And it's so crap to go from there. You can't do any research on that team, none, especially because it's a Raws team who's definitely going to come up with something wacky, some new meta, some new picks. And then you play them first in a tournament in a best of 3 single elimination. And that's a position that we got into because we won the qualifiers. Because there was a lot of talk because we got to the rival with the qualifiers, and a lot of people said that we should just throw because second's better bracket, and it was just kind of unfortunate. We wouldn't do that, and we didn't do that, and it kind of stung because we think that looking back we would have, had a much better shot against Splice to the point where maybe we were the only team at that tournament who would play the same picks. Like we could do that, and we never got the opportunity because we never got to see him play or to see the start they do. So that kind of stung. But it was they won, so they deserved it and all that stuff. It's like the only time I wish I could have gone for a little do-over, just to see what would have been like with a double elimination. Would we play better? Would we know better if we knew what they were going to do? But those are the lessons you learn in life.
Do you think so I mean, with like the qualifiers, we saw winners losers bracket, right? Double elimination. I think MSI is going to have that as well. Maybe, I'm not sure.
I think it is. I think so. I think after last year in particular, a lot of people spoke up about double elimination. So I'm not entirely sure, but I hope it's the format.
Right. Do you think we'll see Worlds this year be the double elimination? I mean, I think every other MOBA, every league has it. Dota has it. When's Smite gonna get it?
Hopefully this year. Down to scheduling issues like time, how much time they've got in the Atlanta, right? They're not renting their own space anymore, so fingers crossed. I'm sure like Cooper's really good at his job, and I'm sure he can come up with a format that makes everyone happy.
All right, I think that would be a lot of people if they could point to one thing they want to see. We all just want to see more good games, right? I mean, we want to see more Smite, and then just able to you can't get one hit KO and you're out. You just had a bad set,
A big part of being a team is how much you can learn, how much you can bounce back, and you just don't get to do that in a single elimination. Being able to go back, watch your game, say, look, they did this was really cool. Learning it and then going on, that's and it makes for some great storylines. So
absolutely,
I would love.
We'll all keep our fingers crossed, and I think there's a lot. It's hard too because you got some teams, right, like who can muster up inhuman strength for one set, and all right, we're good, we made it. Then those teams will push for the single elimination, but double elimination is just always the way to go, I think.
I agree.
All right, so I think that's it. That's all the questions I got. I'm gonna let you go. Before I do, is there any shout outs you want to give? Anything you want to say to the people watching? I'll give you the spotlight here.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. More Smite content. It's always good Smite content. So thank you for doing this, not just with me, but with other people. And shout outs to Dig. They've made the move really seamless, and we're set up in a little great house, and we've got a really good environment. Everything we could ask for. So they've been, the perfect org for this for us, and just shout outs to them and everyone who watches esports, whether it's Smite or not. You let us live this world and do this job. So thank you.
All right, you hear it. Every one of you, even those of you who aren't watching and cannot hear this and don't know what we're saying, thank you, Mr. League of Legends fan. You're the real hero. All right. So, thank you for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure. Look forward to talking to you or your teammates. I know I've reached out to a couple of guys. We had Biggie on. That was a big one. We had Biggie on for the first time, and I've interacted with Biggie a lot. And to finally have one of the guys I looked up to from like a coach point of view, that was a great. And I think I'm on the 3rd year of trying to get Harry on the show, and we're gonna make it happen this year. I swear, it's gonna happen.
We still got to get Harry to send it to scrims. So.
Okay. All right. So thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time around the Battleground. Goodbye, everybody.